quick introductions to basically what the teleports do. What we're doing is we're using this antenna here to transmit to a satellite that's 36,000 kilometers in space, and basically it's a repeater. The difference between a land repeater and a satellite repeater is that it can see almost a third of the Earth's surface, so we can basically link point-to-point links from here to anywhere else in that region, or we can do multi-point broadcasting. This is a KU band antenna. We also have C-band antennas on the facility, and with the new Jabiru project we'll be looking at KA band antennas. NewSat has 2 teleports in Australia. There's this facility, there's also a facility in Perth in Western Australia. The way that the NewSat business model has developed, not by any focus but just the way that the things have gone, is that in the West Australia, with the oil and gas and mining resources boom, the Perth teleport is almost 80% dedicated to the oil and gas and mining, whereas the Adelaide facility has gone towards 80–90% military. So we've got most of the military traffic comes through this facility. There is some goes through Perth, and vice versa. There's some commercial mining stuff comes through here. It's just the way the 2 teleports have evolved as far as the business model goes. Behind each of the antennas, strategically located, there'll be little cabins. And what those cabins are doing, we're actually housing our amplifiers in there. The reason we do that, we try and keep the amplifiers as close to the antenna so that we don't have any major losses between the amplifier and the antenna. It means that the amplifier and the transmission is much more efficient. Security, as you can see, right around the perimeter fencing, we've got barbed wire fencing, we've got cameras strategically located. Everyone in the control room, in the NOC, which you'll see when you go inside, we've got cameras and everything's monitored and recorded so that we've got good security. This station is manned 24/7, so there's always someone here. It's also backed up by the Perth facility, so that the people here can speak to the people in Perth at any time. This is just a typical equipment room showing some of the amplifiers and the RF chain that we've got.
These are the amplifiers that Len was talking about on the transmit side. So they're 750 watt travelling wave tube amplifiers. We've got 4 amplifiers that are online and 1 standby. All of our RF equipment is redundant, so backed up, automatic changeover, so if one fails it'll switch over to the standby.
This is what we call the baseband equipment for the antennas that are outside. The antennas receive frequencies in the gigaband range, and that frequency is too high to use in here, so we down convert it to around about 1 gig, and then the baseband frequencies come into this room, and this is where all the modems are located and all the customers' VSAT hubs. So the VSATs, all the customers will have little antennas at their premises around the country, and then they all transmit via the satellite back to here, and then we have the main hub equipment in this room, and then that is converted for transmission over landlines, fibre, internet. And a lot of this equipment in this equipment room belongs to our customers. They'll request rack space and they'll come in, they'll put their rack equipment in, and then we maintain it for them. We're like first port of call. If there's a fault, they'll ring us up and we'll then work on that equipment with them to fix the problem. This one here is monitoring New South Wales Fire Brigade. One of the hubs in there is for New South Wales Fire Brigade. Every one of their fire stations has a little VSAT antenna on the roof, and it's their backup service, and it goes to a hub in here, and we monitor that as well. So if one of their sites go down, we know about it. There's about 350 remotes on that network.
Welcome. This is a great event for us to have, and a great event for us to have in Adelaide. As you've just seen the facility, Adelaide is one of the key facilities for NewSat, and particularly as we're embarking on our transition from a satellite services provider that you saw today, the facilities today, moving into a satellite operator.
Well, we're about facilitating the growth of defence and sustainable defence industries in South Australia. Space obviously has an element of that. One element is within space, but it obviously extends beyond that as well. The whole development of space capability sort of went into a bit of a lull period through the 70s, 80s and 90s, and it's really our intent now to try and maintain South Australia's involvement in space and continue to grow those capabilities, and do that by promoting not only what's here and currently exists, but also encouraging growth by helping some of those smaller companies to identify global opportunities.
The unique value of satellite is very straightforward. It's 2 things. It has the best economics of any possible form of communications in terms of connecting one to many, and that's why it's the core of broadcasting, because broadcasting is all about one source and many receive sites. It is quite literally, it costs about the same to connect 2 points via satellite as it does to connect 1 point with hundreds of thousands or millions of other points. And that's fairly magical. The other great thing about satellites is that they're very good at connecting one to the middle of nowhere. And that is a requirement that governments, that military organizations, that enterprises, and particularly enterprises that work in tough jobs like resource extraction, that's very valuable to them. Valuable enough to make this, in 2009, globally, about a $93 billion services business, which isn't huge by global standards. It's actually about 1% of global telecom, but it's a very significant niche doing things that nobody else can do. It is a growth business. I forecast a rising rate of commercial military integration in satellite services. I forecast that we're going to have more media, and I don't just mean in your life, on your iPod or your iPad, I mean in your business, I mean in the work you do. Whether you know it or not, Ka-band is your future. If you don't know what Ka-band is, I will illuminate you. You probably do, however. And I can tell you it's going to be an increasing part of what you do via satellite. And finally, the idea that compression, which is all about getting more through that satellite circuit, compression ultimately doesn't have any boundaries. And I know if there is a physicist or an engineer, an RF engineer out there, they're going to disagree with me, as well they should. There is a limit. It's called the Shannon limit, but we're finding it increasingly less important.
I had to get smart on technology because in the late 90s, the U.S. Army decided to digitize all the platforms so that in the course of the fight, the friendly forces could see where they were, they could see where other friendly forces were at, and with the right technology and optics could paint the battlefield on where the enemy was at. Almost everyone on the U.S. side, and from my experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, even the coalition forces, has access to the open internet for various purposes, whether it's morale, welfare, and recreation, or for business research, or for project research, or for briefings, etc. To narrow it down, why Adelaide? As we took a look from a business perspective, how do we meet our growing customers' requirements, we had two different directions that we could look. From America, we could go to the east, to Europe, and be one of many, and be almost undifferentiated from our competition. Or we could go to the west. And what we did was we went to the west, and what we found was a politically stable ally. I found a geographically optimal location here in South Australia. You were able to see from the Pacific Rim, the west coast of the United States, all the way into Africa and Eastern Europe. And what I found over time with NewSat was that they had the best radio frequency and sales engineering team that we work with. In the future, there's going to be a general climb for requirements for satellite bandwidth. And I put two pictures on here. First is the UAV. They are incredible consumers of satellite telecommunications bandwidth. And the next is, at some point in time, as strange as it may be, every soldier will be networked together. And where the soldiers are, there will be politically reliable allies who will need to be networked in so that the joint fight can be executed quickly and the force